This is a Commitment 2019 special, the Kentucky gubernatorial debate, with Governor Matt Bevin and Attorney General Andy Beshear. Here now is WLWT News 5's Cherie Pallello.
And good evening to you, and welcome to the fifth and final debate in the Kentucky governor's race. So glad that you can join us here at home and here in our audience. Look at this crowd that we have here tonight. A packed house here on the campus of Northern Kentucky University, our partner for this Commitment 2019 debate. This crowd of very passionate voters joining us here this evening. The candidates joining me tonight, of course, incumbent Republican Governor Matt Bevin and Democratic incumbent Attorney General Andy Beshear.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you both for being here. Tonight, the candidates are going to each deliver opening remarks, followed by a series of questions put together by our staff here at WLWT. We will then wrap up with closing statements. We want to jump right in and get through as much as we can. So let's begin with opening statements. And Governor Bevin, by virtue of the coin toss, you begin. You have 90 seconds.
Terrific. Thank you so much to each of you who've taken the time to come out. This is the greatness of America. The fact that we do 1 week from tonight, we'll have a decision made based on the voice of the people of Kentucky. And to those who have been engaged, I say thank you. It's imperative, spread the word among 3, 5, 10, 20 other people. It's imperative that people get out and vote. I'm grateful to be an American. I'm grateful to be a Kentuckian. I'm grateful to be your governor. I love this state. I love the momentum that we have. I love the enthusiasm that you feel in the air, that you feel here in Northern Kentucky. I love to see the buildings that are going up, the infrastructure that is happening. I'm grateful to have the support of the 3 counties of Boone and Kenton and Campbell, the judge executives and the elected officials up here. The legislators that represent you in Frankfort are doing a stellar job. Good things are happening, exciting things. There's a level of enthusiasm in the air that has not historically been here. I'm a kid who comes from a fairly humble background. I'm a kid who grew up well below the poverty level, but I have lived the American dream. It's a real thing. And as a military veteran, as a father of 9 children, my wife and I having adopted, I'm proud to be able to represent a state that is strongly, unapologetically pro-life. Not everyone, not even everyone in this room or watching, but that as a state we value the sanctity of human life. I'm proud to be able to stand with the President of the United States of America and to be able to stand on values of job creation as a private sector job creator. These are things we'll talk about for the next hour, and I thank you for joining us in this conversation.
Mr. Beshear, your opening statements.
Well, good evening to everybody. And it is great to be back on the campus of Northern Kentucky University. I got to spend a summer here in 1995 when I was in the Governor's Scholars Program. And wow, has it grown from then. But all of the progress that this community is so proud of is threatened and is on the line in this election. Because one of the first acts that Matt Bevin took as governor was to illegally cut the budgets of all of our universities and community colleges, including NKU. But I filed suit, we won, we returned $18 million where it belonged. But how did he respond? With 2 budgets that decimated the budgets for NKU and other universities. His first budget led to 105 full-time positions being lost just at this university. His second budget led to more than 60 full-time positions being let go of this university. We cannot stand to see a third Matt Bevin budget. But you're not the only folks that are being attacked, because this governor's attacked virtually every educator across this state, and we know what's on the line. It's the very future of public education, higher education, rural health care, and our pension system. But I'm fired up, folks, because 7 days out, I know our people want a governor that listens more than he talks, solves more problems than he creates, and would never engage in the type of bullying and name-calling we've seen, but spends all his time addressing our true challenges.
Let's get right into our questions tonight. And one of the biggest topics initially when we talked about how should we begin this debate was our Brent Spence Bridge. President Obama and President Trump have both stood in the shadow of the Brent Spence Bridge and promised a replacement. I was there as a reporter covering it. The bridge is functionally obsolete and has been for years. But despite promises from the state capitol to the White House, no funding plan is in place, and we remain as far today from putting shovels into the ground as we have been since before either president took office. What is your plan to fund the critical infrastructure project, and how quickly will you move forward? Governor Bevin, you begin.
Yeah, there's several things that need to be done. It starts with people having conversations across this river. Before Governor DeWine was elected, he and I sat down. We've been friends for some years. I've been able to talk with him in anticipation of him having won. When he was sworn in, I was there with him that day, and even before he gave his acceptance speech, he said, Matt and I have a little bridge we need to work on, and he's right. This project needs to be done. It is functionally sound, structurally sound, but it is functionally obsolete. About 180 some odd thousand cars a day going across it. Has to be replaced. We can't keep kicking this can down the road. One thing I will say that I hope you've seen it up here in northern Kentucky, you've seen it across the Commonwealth. I'm not going to kick cans down the road. We've done this, as you said, for decades on this and on any number of other fronts, with our pensions, with tax structure, et cetera. We will not kick this can down the road. I will work with Ohio to get this done. In terms of the funding, maybe we'll come back when there's more than a minute to talk about where it comes from. But let's be honest, we have to pay for it. We, the users of this bridge and of these roads, have to pay for it. There's no other way around it.
We're going to get to that. Mr. Beshear, you have 60 seconds.
Well, Matt Bevin's already been governor for 4 years, and you're right. Not one shovel has been put in the ground. He kicked that can down the road, and he kicked it hard. It's time that we actually have leadership that takes the steps necessary for our critical infrastructure. Families get in cars and drive across that bridge every day. And it's getting to the point where we should fear for their safety. We have to come together and develop the right type of plan where we don't have those folks that are one paycheck away from falling into poverty, paying more and more each and every day just to get to their job. It's going to take working and listening with the local leaders like the mayor in Covington. It's going to take working across party lines with Governor DeWine, who I served as Attorney General with. We worked on a number of projects on this drug epidemic. I know we can work this out. But if you've had 4 years and not one shovel's gone in the ground, don't expect something you didn't get the first time around.
So then let's elaborate on that. What is the plan? Does it mean tolling? No bridge in America has been built in the last decade without tolls. Yes. So is tolling a reality that has to be accepted? And how do you sell that to the Northern Kentucky workers who now see his cost of living increasing, paying more for these tolls or using sustainable more gas to drive a longer route to work? Is tolling the answer? What's your plan to get it done? Governor Bevin, 30 seconds.
There's two sources of funding. We have the Federal Highway Trust Fund. We have the variable excise tax on fuel. It's a 9% variable excise tax. It generates about $700 million a year. It's not enough to be able to do all these projects, including this one. We have for 4 years been having conversations. Those of you who might be from Ohio know that the governor before this had other things on his mind besides this bridge. I'll leave it at that, other than to say these conversations are going on. At 180,000 people a year, that at $1 per traveler across that bridge, it's about $65 million a year. You can bond an extraordinary amount of infrastructure when you pay it off with this. There is no way around it. It is going to have to require some combination. You have, with technology, the ability to use variable tolling based on local traffic, through traffic, commercial traffic, private traffic, but there's no way around having some type of tolling on a bridge of this size.
I have to stop you there. So yes on tolling for you, Governor, and what's your response?
Well, when this governor talks about having conversations, he doesn't talk about talking to the actual people of Northern Kentucky, talking to them about their needs and working to build a consensus. But building consensus takes a governor that listens and doesn't lecture, that doesn't bully and call people names, that can sit down at a table and negotiate because he hasn't angered the other side so severely because of his rhetoric.
So is that tolling or no tolling?
I believe that the people of Northern Kentucky ultimately ought to decide the fate of this bridge, and I'm going to work with them to get it done.
Would you like to answer him? Yes or no to tolls?
I believe that the people of Northern Kentucky and not this governor should get to determine the manner in which that bridge is going to be funded.
All right, let's move on.
Don't you want to hear that from a future governor? Somebody who's not capable of making a decision or tell you what he thinks.
There we go.
Governor, look at the teachers right here and tell them you've never insulted them.
We want to get through as many questions as we can.
Go ahead.
So you're going to have plenty of time to address all of these issues. Let's move on to the pension fund now. Kentucky State Pension Fund crisis, another huge topic between both of you we've seen in past debates. A study by the Pew Charitable Trust ranked the Bluegrass as the most underfunded pension in the nation with a shortfall of nearly $43 billion. What is your plan to fix it in a way that still fulfills the promises that we've made to our state workers who have in many cases invested decades of their lives expecting the state to provide a solid retirement plan? Mr. Beshear, we begin with you.
A pension is a promise. It's a promise we've made to every teacher, police officer, firefighter, and social worker that although we don't pay them enough, and we don't pay them enough, we will make it up with a solid retirement. But this governor broke that promise to each and every teacher wearing red out here today. While he was hurling insults, he tried to illegally cut your pensions. And worse, he put it in a sewer bill because that's what he thinks of us. But I stood up to him and we beat him 7-0 in front of the Supreme Court. Now, he's pushing all those costs down to cities and counties who are looking for ways to raise your local taxes. His solution is to raise your taxes. Mine is new, dedicated revenue that will go solely to this pension system. It comes in the form of expanded gaming because Jack's across the river is just 7.6 miles away, where Governor DeWine welcomes Kentuckians to spend their entertainment dollars so he can take our revenue and spend it on his roads, for his health care, or to fund his pension system.
Governor Bevin.
I mean, here's the bottom line. This is a crisis in this state and in this country. A pension has been promised to people, but here's the reality. If we keep promising the same thing to future employees, there is 0% chance that the future employees, the current or even those already retired who plan to live more than 10 or 12 years, are going to get what was promised to them. There is not enough money. There are more retired workers now in Kentucky than there are active workers. The defined benefit plan has collapsed. And you can promise all the things you want. I notice when a question is asked, he has to flip over his notes so that he can find the written sound bites that someone else wrote. You don't even know what you're talking about on this topic.
Nothing
you have to
on
read
pensions
your notes.
here.
You don't know
here.
what you're talking about.
Okay. So,
listen, and let me just say this: whether you're for me, especially if you're for me, don't interrupt. Let's have a good conversation. But I will say this: the reality is financial. It is numeric. It is actuarial. I am the only governor in the history of Kentucky that has ever funded these pensions, including for the teachers, as well as every other public employee. And the only one. I'm the only one that has never swept the lottery funds, put 100% of it. And the SEEK formula is the highest it's ever been. The highest match for the nickel tax is higher now than it's ever been in history.
We knew this was going to be a hot button. We've seen it in the past. So I want to be clear about this here. It's not only a heated issue, but it's also a very important one. So I want to ask a follow-up here and get an answer from both of you. You will both each get an extra minute. Mr. Bevin, you've taken a lot of criticism for your language and your tone about the pension crisis, saying that protesters are, quote, uninformed and selfish, and that they have a, quote, thug mentality. Mr. Beshear, you have a background in law, not business or finance. If the pension collapses, hundreds of thousands of people face a very real possibility of spending their senior years in poverty. Bluntly put, gentlemen, why should they trust either one of you to save their future? Governor Bevin.
There's only one person who's ever funded your pension. You're looking at him. I'm the only governor that has ever fully funded even the bare minimum, which is the actuarially required contribution. I'm the only one on the stage who understands this because I'm the only one that's ever worked in this industry. The reason I have funded it, the reason I ran to be governor, was to take this among other cans that were being kicked down the road and to stop kicking them. Because I'm here by choice. I love this state. My wife and our 9 children are growing up in this state. And if a state falls into financial insolvency, everything else we would wish for becomes a moot point. My grandmother was a 94-year-old retired teacher when she passed away. She was widowed when she was young. She raised 2 children as a single mom, as a public school teacher, was promised a pension, and had that system failed, she would have been destitute. I am fighting to make sure that we don't just make lip service, don't make promises. This fell into ruin under your dad's leadership and several governors before him. It wasn't just him, but I'm telling you, there are several governors who have kicked this down the road for years. The time of can kicking is over in Kentucky.
Mr. Beshear.
People can trust me to fund their pensions because I've fought for it, and I'm the one that actually believes it's a promise. Only one of us on this stage tried to illegally cut people's pensions and put it in a sewer bill, and that's Matt Bevin.
You do realize
but
the
you
legislature
don't have to
passes
just take
legislation.
my word for
Let
it.
him finish.
Look at the Fraternal Order of Police that has endorsed my campaign. These are investigators. They're good at getting to the facts and testing credibility, and they trust me with the future pensions of those officers. But let's be really clear. Matt Bevin hasn't denied that he is raising your taxes to pay for this pension system. I'm for new dedicated revenue, beginning with the expanded gaming. Jax is 7 miles from where we're sitting right now, where Governor DeWine takes our entertainment dollars. Lawrenceburg, Indiana is 28 miles from here, and that's where Governor Eric Holcomb takes our entertainment dollars. They're taking $1 billion of Kentuckians' money every single year, and they are using that revenue to help their states. It's time we stopped the bleeding and kept that money right here in Kentucky.
We will talk more about gaming here down the road. Let's move on to the campaigns that both of you have been running. Your campaigns, along with outside groups, have spent millions attacking each other, right? It's hard to watch any commercial break.
Don't have a TV, that's what I do.
You can't get away from it. You can't escape it. It's on the radio, it's on television. Mr. Beshear, you've sued the governor multiple times over accusations of abusing his executive power. Mr. Bevin, you've accused the Attorney General's office and his father's administration of being corrupt. At a time when people are fed up with the fighting and the divide in politics and in Washington, how can voters trust that you're going to get anything done when you both have been so nasty to one another, and we're seeing it again here tonight? Mr. Beshear.
Well, I'm running to be a governor for all Kentuckians, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. Over the last 4 years, we've seen too much of this governor creating an us versus a them. We see him get on stage and yell, which side are you on, which side are you on? But I grew up here in Kentucky, and I know our problems are too fundamental to have this side and that side, to have us versus a them. We've got to come together as a we, and we can only move forward together. The way I'm going to bring people together is by focusing on issues that aren't partisan. They're just good for all Kentucky families. Those are public education, pensions, health care, and jobs. And I'm going to lead with my Kentucky values. They say when you make a promise, you keep it, so you never try to illegally cut someone's pension. They say that you trust and help your neighbors, which means you would never tear people off of health care. And they say that when you step up to a race like this, you try to run it with integrity, which is why I will never bring up this governor's kids in any debate, despite what he has done to me.
I think the question was about the discourse in this race. I will simply say this. You said that I have accused he and his father of corruption. I'm just pointed out the fact that a fellow who worked for his father for 6 years and was the very first person that he ever appointed to office as the Deputy Attorney General for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the #2 law enforcement officer in the state, is now in federal prison because under both the Attorney General and under his father, he was buying and selling this state for cash, with boxes of cash in cardboard boxes in McDonald's parking lots to the FBI toward the end. These are facts. This isn't an accusation. These are statements of fact. It was corruption. That's the least of it. We don't have time in the next 30 seconds to go into all of it. I will simply say this. I'm cleaning this mess up. How did we get into this mess? For 96 straight years, we've had this kind of inside corruption, this kind of nonsense going on in this state. And it is time that we get it cleaned up. Northern Kentucky has been treated like a distant cousin for a long time. It has never been given its fair share of time in Frankfort. And we, for the first time, have cabinet-level officials, people on boards and commissions leading. And you look at the economic activity in this state.
Neither one of you are truly answering this question. So I want, I want.
No, you asked me about corruption, and I'm saying it's not an accusation.
Let me finish here. I'm going to elaborate on what I said. I want to follow up with both of you. Mr. Bevin, you have been a very controversial figure in Kentucky politics. Over the summer, you were ranked the least popular governor in the country.
Yeah.
Hold on. I have this is for both of you. What's your message to voters who feel like you are too polarizing? Mr. Beshear, Despite Governor Bevin's brash and sometimes unpopular personality, many people feel like that's what our state and our country needs right now, brutal honesty. What do you say to win over the voters who say that the only way to go is to dig in and stay the course? I'll begin with you, with Mr. Beshear. You have 30 seconds.
I would say we're taught better than that on Sundays, and we ought to practice what we're taught on Sundays, Monday through Saturday, and that's that we ought to be able to govern with the golden rule. That's that we treat our neighbors as ourselves, and we are all each other's neighbors. Whether they're in your political party or whether they agree with you, you must treat people with respect, which means you never insult teachers. You don't get in fights with your lieutenant governor and fire most of her staff. You treat everyone that's out there with the type of respect that you would want to be treated with. It's that simple.
I will say this, again, I could sit here and blow a lot of smoke, and I respect that what you said, there's truth to it in some measure. But the bottom line is, it is a time for honesty. Aristotle, more than 2,000 years ago, said, if you want to avoid any criticism, say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. And this is what Kentucky's been for the better part of 100 years. While states around us have eaten our lunch, and while states that have a fraction of what we have from an infrastructure, from a geographic standpoint, from a quality of life, from a low energy cost, from a work ethic standpoint, things we are blessed with in abundance, states like Indiana and Tennessee and Ohio have eaten our lunch. And I believe that it is time for Kentucky to make hard decisions, face hard truths, and move forward, not backwards.
Yes or no answer. Are you proud of the campaigns that you have been running this year?
Oh, I wish all campaigns were cleaner
Yes or no?
about the issues. Oh, I wish this campaign hadn't gotten nasty.
Okay.
I am proud of the campaign that we've run, because the campaign we've run, neither of us, in fairness, speaks for all the outside people that run ads on our behalf. But the campaign that we have run has focused on the things that we have done, the jobs that we've created, and I'm very proud of it.
You're
We'll
proud
take
of your
that as a yes.
campaign.
Very much.
Moving on to vaping. Nearly 36 people have died from vaping-related lung illnesses across the country. We know tobacco, of course, still big business here in Kentucky, but our kids are the most precious commodity. I think we can all agree on that. Ohio just increased the age to buy tobacco and e-cigarettes to 21. Ohio and other states have also outlawed flavored e-cigarettes. Should Kentucky do the same thing, Governor Bevin?
This will be a topic of conversation in this next legislative session. Already bills are being put forward that have proposed doing both the things you've just said, both raising the age limit to 21, which vape shops in Kentucky are largely supportive of, because frankly, they too have been undermined by the very things you've just described. Of the deaths that we've had, there haven't been anybody in Kentucky. We've had about 25 to 30 people in Kentucky who have actually been harmed irreparably in some respect as a result of vaping. But it's important to understand this. The real problems come from the fact that Juul, and I'm going to be very specific with the name of one company, targets using a level of nicotine that is about the equivalent in a single vial of about a pack and a half. When vaping was first introduced, it was introduced as a way to wean people off of smoking. And indeed, for many people, including owners of vape shops, that's exactly what it has done, and most of their customers are using it for that. And you can even get 0 or 3 or 6 milligrams. But when you have the amount of a pack and a half in a single vial, in 8th and 9th and 10th graders are getting these with impunity in schools, we have a big problem. It needs to be nipped in the bud.
If you were reelected, would you raise the age limit?
Again, it's not up to me. It's a legislative. Would I support it? Yes, I would. It's like the same with things going into sewer bills.
Okay.
You keep accusing me of this. I think you don't understand how the legislative process works. The legislator passes the bills.
Okay,
That's how it
Mr.
works.
Bashir.
Will you apologize to
That's how it
every
works.
teacher here for your support of the sewer
We're talking
bill?
about
Yes
the
or no?
legislature.
Okay,
The legislature
let's keep on
makes
track
these
here. We're
decisions.
talking about
That's
vaping.
who makes the decisions, Amy.
Mr. Bashir, your thoughts on vaping.
focus.
Should we increase the age limit to 21?
I'm the dad of a 9 and a 10-year-old. The health of our children is of the utmost importance to me, and you're right, it always ought to be the first thing that government addresses. And we had lowering levels of youth smoking. We were moving in the right direction until vaping came along. And what we see is an explosion of teenagers, of young adults using vaping. And it's severely problematic, not just now, but moving into the rest of their lives. So I'll be direct and not punt to the legislature. Yes, I will raise the age, and yes, we will ban those flavored type of products. Absolutely.
I think we said the same thing. One of us will do it legally, and the other one will just do things that you've sued me for 10 years
So this year,
or 4 years.
He can't
Okay.
get through one debate without
Gentlemen,
being nasty. It's
let's-
tough on
It's not
him.
nasty. It's called the truth. The truth hurts. I know. It's painful.
listen,
Can you
this
control
is not
yourself
a
for
live
one debate?
commercial to attack each other. This is
Just
a
one.
live debate. So let's keep on point. This year, Ohio adopted the 6-week abortion ban known as the Heartbeat Bill, making it the 6th state in the nation to attempt to essentially outlaw abortions, even for rape or incest. Would you support a similar law in Kentucky, or is this an attack on women's rights? Mr. Beshear.
I support Roe v. Wade, but I also support reasonable restrictions, especially on late-term procedures. But this governor is an extremist. He supports a complete and total ban, even in cases of rape and incest. As Attorney General, I work with survivors of human trafficking, of rape, on a daily basis. And those human trafficking survivors oftentimes have been violated multiple times a day for years before they're rescued. I believe that those individuals deserve options. This governor would leave them none.
I think the options that every child deserves is, among other things, to be born. And I will say this. You talk about what's extreme. I'll tell you, talk about extreme. What is extreme is your unwillingness to defend a 20-week ban. Your unwillingness to defend the laws passed by the legislature, even though you're being paid to do it, even though you took a sworn oath to do it, you refused to do it because you didn't want to, because it would hurt your ability to be funded by Planned Parenthood and NARAL. I'll tell you what else is extreme. It's extreme when you think that dismembering a living fetus in the process of abortion is not something that you will stand against. What else is extreme is when you talk about the ultrasound bill, simply requiring an ultrasound to be offered, you felt that was too extreme. You haven't defended a single pro-life bill that has been passed by this legislature, even though it is your sworn responsibility to do so.
I know you want to respond. You have 30 seconds to respond, and then you can as well.
There was a story in the Herald Leader, I think just yesterday, of a 13-year-old that was raped. If that 13-year-old had been raped by her grandfather, her uncle, and had been impregnated, this governor would leave her no options. I think that's wrong.
Again, you're
Governor?
talking about a hypothetical. You're making up a story.
Okay, please, let him respond.
Let me just leave it with this. There is not one person, clapping or not clapping, that has the right to take the life of another innocent human being. Not one person on planet Earth.
That 13-year-old would have no options. That's
Okay.
not made up. That was a story in the Herald Leader
No, the part
yesterday.
that you just made up about the uncle or
Governor,
the father
we're
is
gonna
made
begin
up.
with
You
you.
which is
don't
what
think
you do.
people are victims
You
of
make this
incest
up.
and rape? You
Andy,
don't think that occurs in
you
Kentucky,
make up-
Governor?
You make up more stories.
You held a conference on human trafficking. You
Yeah.
don't think this occurs?
I'm telling you, you don't have the right
That's
to
very
decide when an
dangerous.
innocent child dies. And the fact is, you're supported
Okay.
by NARAL, you're supported by Planned Parenthood, and you have never stood for life. You're pro-abortion, and you ought to admit it.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. And please, please, please hold your comments. Gun violence overall. According to recent polls, more than 70% of voters and the majority of hunters support some sort of ban on assault-style weapons. Kentuckians are fiercely independent and protective, of course, of their Second Amendment rights. How do you balance those rights while still protecting people from guns that can kill dozens of people in a matter of seconds, as we have seen in the last year? And will you sign, the question, will you sign a gun control measure if one comes to your desk as governor? Governor Bevin, you begin.
I will say this, the Second Amendment is a short amendment. It's 27 words, the last four words of which are shall not be infringed, that we have a right to keep and bear arms, that this shall not be infringed. What you've just described are infringements upon this. There's no question about it. I was at a gun show this weekend. Nobody was attacked there. Nobody was assaulted there. Why? But you can laugh about it, but think about this. Where do all of these assaults take place? In gun-free zones, in theaters, in schools, in places that people know they can prey on people. You asked a specific question. Would I sign a ban on ownership
Assault
of these?
weapons.
And I would not. No, I would not. Because I think that the Second Amendment, exactly as it's written, is exactly what our founders intended. and that indeed it shall not be infringed. You can poo-poo all you want, but the reality is it is an evil person who kills people, not the weapon. They can do it with a gun, they can do it with a knife, they can do it with a vehicle. And if a person wants to kill another person, they will find a way to do it. I would not sign such a ban on guns of this sort.
Attorney General?
I support the Second Amendment, but the Second Amendment allows law enforcement and families to step in and stop someone when they know they are in imminent danger, when they are just one step away from causing mass murder. It's time that Kentucky passes a red flag law. It's what is supported by a bipartisan group of Democratic and Republican senators in our state Senate. It's supported by the president. They are working on it in Ohio. They passed it in Indiana. It has been passed in Florida. It protects the Second Amendment, but it also allows a family or law enforcement to go to the courts that provide someone due process and make sure that when we know that person is about to murder tens, dozens, or more people, that we can step in and do something about it.
What about a ban on assault weapons?
I believe red flag laws are the direction that Kentucky should go, and it's something that I'm willing to support.
Red flag laws are different than a ban on assault weapons.
Right. I support a red flag law. I do not believe an assault ban is right for Kentucky.
I think we just found some common ground here.
Yeah, I think we backed into that one, didn't we?
Just last night, a teenager in Boone County was charged with making a threat against her high school. This is far from an isolated incident, as schools throughout the state and the country deal with direct and indirect threats, often through social media. Parents are afraid to send their kids to school for fear of a gunman walking in. It has been 20 years since Columbine and the massacre there. What have you done or are going to do to make our schools safer and our kids safer, Governor Beshear?
Well, every child should feel safe in school.
I think Governor Beshear has the first.
I am Beshear.
Oh, I'm sorry, Governor. So sorry.
But I appreciate your support.
I will say,
Thank you in advance.
Enjoy it because it won't last long. I will say this. Here's the thing.
You called me governor last night in the debate.
The biggest issue, I was speaking about your father. The biggest issue, which I've had plenty to say about him, because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I will say this. The biggest issue in our schools, and you think about even what was just said by this young girl, we have behavioral health issues that are massive problems in our state and in this country. We spent less than 1% when I was elected of Medicaid dollars on behavioral health. And that has been pretty typical across the country. So what we've started to do is spend significantly more. Some of it, sadly, we've had to get waivers from the federal government to be able to use dollars for behavioral health, for therapists, for people inside the schools, to bring nurses and people who are trauma trained inside the schools. We also, look what happened today in Jefferson County Public School System, where there was an assault between a teacher and a student. It was not good on either side. We'll sort it out, I'm sure, in time. But the reality is this is a school system that said they don't want to have any armed officers in the school because it's too threatening. And yet, look what came of it. The bottom line is we need to make our schools safer. Absolutely. Senate Bill 1, which I led the charge on, is intended to do exactly that.
Time. Mr. Beshear.
I believe every child should feel safe at school, and every parent shouldn't be worrying when their child is at school about whether they are safe. So we have got to take immediate steps to improve school safety. The first thing that we have got to do is address the physical plant setup of so many of our schools that have 4, 5, 7, 9 entrances. Right now, they are seen as a soft target. We shouldn't ever have a school considered to be a soft target. The second thing that we've got to do is fund an SRO in every single school across this Commonwealth. But what we have to understand is that those SROs have to be trained. We've got to make sure that every SRO creates the type of environment where every child in that school thinks they're there for their safety, not to watch over them, not to get them in trouble, but actually they're committed for their safety. As governor, I'm going to make sure that every single school across this Commonwealth is safe and that our teachers and students always feel safe in their classroom.
I will say this, I think there is a lot of agreement, truth be told, on this issue, and there ought to be, because this really isn't a partisan issue. This is a function of everybody who walks in and out of these buildings on a daily basis. I will only simply add this. It is critical that people not know with absolute certainty that it is a gun-free zone, and I'll leave it at that. There needs to be training. There needs to be a level of certification, including psychological training, that is far above and beyond a concealed carry or anything of this sort. But there has got to be at least the perception, and often the reality, but at least the perception that there is an armed person that could encounter somebody that would want to shoot up a school.
Mr. Beshear, would you like to respond? 30 seconds.
Well, I believe that every student ought to be safe, and what we ought to do in each and every school is to make sure that we have both that SRO, but also we have to provide the funding to make that building, that physical plant, safer. So many of our schools across the Commonwealth were built even hundreds of years ago. There's a school in Murray that still has the separate boys and girls entrance. We have got to step in as a state and provide the funding, not just for textbooks and technology, what this governor has cut, but also for school safety, which this governor has never provided.
Let's talk about another important issue that we see day in and day out. When I became a reporter here at WLWT, one of the first people that I interviewed was a woman by the name of Charlotte Wethington.
Yeah,
it was
I know
right here
Charlotte.
in northern Kentucky. Her son, Casey, overdosed and died from heroin. I still remember where we were standing and what she said when she told me it was an epidemic that was going to take over our country. That was 17 years ago. We now lose 30 Kentuckians a week to the drug epidemic. What is your plan? What is your plan to attack the opioid crisis that is destroying Kentucky families? Mr. Beshear.
Before I ran for Attorney General, I met with Charlotte and the rest of the parents that make up Northern Kentucky Hates Heroin. I listened to their stories and I pledged to them that I would be the most aggressive Attorney General they have ever seen attacking this opioid epidemic. And you're right, but it's not just 30 Kentuckians a week that we lose. It's 100 babies being born every month going through withdrawal. It's why I've become the most aggressive AG in this country at going after opioid manufacturers and distributors, and some of those parents from Northern Kentucky Hates Heroin stood next to me while we filed those suits. We have filed more than any other attorney general, and right now, we're perfect. We've won every argument and every motion. These companies must be held accountable. They sent 2 billion pills into Kentucky over a 6-year period, enough to addict every man, woman, and child. But this governor stood in the way of those lawsuits. When I sued Johnson & Johnson, a company that Oklahoma got $570 million against, he said he opposed the lawsuit. He went in front of the AARP and said Big Pharma gets a bad rap. He even called these types of lawsuits shakedowns in 2015. We need a new governor to hold these companies accountable.
Governor Bevin.
Again, facts matter. The 2 billion pills that came into the state over a 6-year period or when your father was the governor, let's be honest about it. That was the 6-year period we're talking about. And this is a big problem. I have instituted a 3-day ban on the initial prescriptions. This is something that we did legislatively, not by executive action. We did it by law. It's the lowest restriction in the country. Last year, when the country for the first time saw a decline in years, a 5% decline in opioid-related deaths. In Kentucky, we led the nation with a 15% decline because the things that we're focusing on, by bringing programs in place with websites and phone numbers with live people at them, where our Angel initiative is in every single state police post, where people have the ability to come in with drugs on them, not to be criminally charged, but to be given an opportunity to find a bed. Let me make some point that is very critical. The only settlement you've ever had was when you were a law firm partner at the firm that
I got $40 million in settlements last week.
You defended Purdue Pharma, the same company that created OxyContin, that set this in motion. The only settlement you have ever had, ever, with a maker of opioids was when you defended Purdue Pharma against the people of Kentucky. Be
Mr.
honest.
Beshear,
Right.
we can each have 30 seconds here. What's your
Once
response?
again, this governor is not speaking the truth. Wasn't involved in that settlement whatsoever. Wasn't at my law firm at the time of the settlement. Wasn't in the Attorney General's office. Had no role whatsoever. But this comes from the same person who says somebody commits suicide in a casino every single night and then denies it. Or says that teachers caused the sexual assault of children simply because they came to the Capitol to protest his war on public education. This isn't true, and none of that is either.
It is true, actually. You were a partner there, and your father is a partner there, and it's the only settlement you've ever gotten. You say you've sued more people than anyone in Kentucky. How many dollars have you gotten? Zero. You're bragging about $40 million.
I returned $40 million last week.
That was for a birth control company and for a class action suit you were part of. These are not related.
On an
We're
opioid
talking about
called Suboxone.
nonsense. Let me tell you something. You're bringing in zero. I've brought in over $100 million to address this issue since I've been the governor. The reason we're leading the nation on seeing a decline in here, the reason we're seeing Narcan being used is because I've taken a lead on this. I don't give lip service to it like you, and I don't ignore it like your father did.
We returned $60 million to this state and federal Medicaid in the last 3 months in settlements alone. Good work for 3 months.
You've gotten zero from these people that you say that you're suing.
All right.
The only time you had a settlement was when you profited because you represented Purdue Pharma. You can lie all you want.
We have a lot to get
Just
through,
like
and
the
we're running out of
casino
time.
comments, just like the teacher
it is
comments.
true.
We're
Not
running out of
true.
time.
You've never denied that you've profited from it because you know you have.
Do you want to respond to these casino comments?
Yeah, I mean, what you've said tonight is different than what you said the other night. The reality is this. I would encourage everyone to just go to Google and put hotel casino suicides and just read what you read. Figure it out for yourself. You will find there's a remarkably high correlation between suicides and gambling.
So you now
I've always said it. What I've never said is that they're doing it on the floor of casinos, which is what you repeatedly said. They're doing it in hotel rooms. They're doing it in bathrooms. They're doing it off of parking garages. It is happening systemically. Look at the city of Las Vegas, where every other night in a hotel room, someone commits suicide in one city alone. This is a problem. There are entire families that have set up support groups for people who have lost members of their family to suicide because of addiction to gambling. These are facts. You can poo-poo them, you can make light of them, but the reality is this.
You still claim this is a fact.
True. These are true.
You still claim it's a fact.
You're telling these families who have lost members that have formed support groups that they don't actually know what they're talking about?
Mr. Beshear,
yes.
30 seconds to respond, and then we're going to move on.
On Saturday night's debate, I looked at this governor and I said, do you deny saying that someone commits suicide every night on a casino floor in America?
And I
he
did
looked
deny
at me
it because
and he
I didn't
said,
say
I've
it.
never said anything like that.
I said casino
in my
floor.
life. You never said floor
I did.
that night.
Go back and watch this
Folks,
debate. We qualified
this is
it 2 times.
someone who cannot admit when they have made something up and they've been caught.
No,
He is on
I
tape.
know what I said.
For
You
a
don't.
governor to deny words that came out of his mouth.
They didn't.
Is a governor we
They
can't
came out of
trust
your
to
mouth.
govern us any longer.
Okay, we have listened to, just
came
to
out of your
clarify
mouth,
here, just to clarify here,
On the better, my friend.
we have listened to the audio tape provided by the radio station and by our sister station,
Can we play it?
WLKY. We agreed no audio tapes would be played during this broadcast prior to us ever agreeing to this or your
But
camps.
I'm willing to play it.
Stand
Are
by
you?
just
Of
a
course,
second.
because I know what
the
I said.
quote is, every night somewhere in America, somebody takes their life in a casino. Are those your
That's
words?
exactly what I said.
Okay.
That's
Let's move
not
on.
what you said
believe
that I said.
that is accurate.
I do know it to be accurate.
Let-
If in Las Vegas alone,
Entirely
it's every
fabricated.
other night.
Okay, I'm
every
gonna-
other night in one city. Trust me, there's a whole lot of other ones.
A governor who
listen.
would make up facts to support his argument, who gets caught on tape, denies it, is a governor we can't
All
trust
right,
to
let's
lead
move on
Kentucky.
here, and I'm going to stay with gaming here since we are on this topic. Obviously, we know there is a lot of legal betting on horse betting. In May, the High Court ruled states should decide for themselves whether to allow sports betting. Local companies like Churchill Downs could get in on this action. Profits from casinos could help, if not solve, the state's deficit and the pension crisis.
That's right.
Would you open the door to legal gambling on sports, gaming, and possibly adding casinos? Governor Bevin.
Boy, I wish you could go first because I'm going to state the actual facts. I'd love to see what lie you were going to tell us before I say this. There's let's note Nevada. They've had sports betting for years. Sports betting has been legal there for years. There are 150 physical locations in Nevada that you can go in and place a sports bet. It is regulated. It is staffed. There are people that work there to take those bets. Last year in Nevada, guess how much money they brought in terms of taxes based on sports handles alone in the state of Nevada? $17 million. That's Nevada. We will be some fraction of that. The question we have to ask ourselves is not whether it should be legal or not. I joined suit with New Jersey and a dozen other states or so because this is a question of 10th Amendment rights. I was part of the suit that ultimately allowed this to be possible. But the reason I did had nothing to do with whether we should have this. This is going to be decided by our legislature. It does exist. People are able to place sports wagering bets on their phones across state lines or what have you. But here's the thing. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Will we get enough to justify the cost of implementing it? That's what our legislature is going to have to deal with.
Understand. Mr. Bashir?
Earlier tonight, this governor said the surrounding states are eating our lunch. Indiana, Tennessee, and Ohio. 3 states that have legalized sports betting, and 2 of them have legalized casino gaming. And yes, they are eating our lunch. They are taking our entertainment dollars and using it to fund their roads, to pay for health care for their citizens, to potentially put towards their pensions. Kentuckians are funding those states. But one governor stands in the way, and it's Matt Bevin. If we elect a Bashir Coleman ticket, yes, we will legalize expanded gaming, including sports betting. If Matt Bevin is reelected, you will never see this revenue. And this revenue is critically important to that pension system because it can create up to $550 million of dedicated revenue that goes into that system every year so our teachers and police officers don't have to show up at the Capitol every 2 years just to fight for what was already promised to them. We are bleeding money. Let's keep it right here in Kentucky because Jax is just 7.6 miles away from where we are tonight.
Okay, I know we could go on and on about
Let me
this.
say this real quick because you didn't give me a
And
chance to
apparently we
counter
will.
this. And here's the thing. It's not going to happen no matter who the next governor is. That's important to understand. You can promise this. There is no way, constitutionally or legislatively, for you to get this done without the support of 138 men and women who have made it abundantly clear for 10 years, both when your father with a much more friendly legislature and even in recent years have said it's not going to happen. So you need to come up with a different message. And number 2, you said that there's $1 billion, is that correct, of people's, Kentuckians' money that's going into these other casinos? $1 billion that we're spending?
You don't know what Kentuckians spend at casinos,
No, is this
do
what
you?
is this what
Okay.
you're saying? No, you said this earlier.
Yes.
A quick
But understand
30,
that, no,
a quick
he
30.
said $1 billion is being spent.
It's my time now.
Okay,
Hold
but
on.
no, you said $1 billion, but
Just-
somehow
just
$1 billion.
control yourself for one debate.
$1
It's
billion
okay.
is going to generate
keep going.
$550 million in
Okay,
taxes.
you had
How
your
does
time.
that work?
You had your time. Please.
You're making up numbers. Ask
Mr.
him where the
Bashir.
$550 million comes from.
Please respond. Please respond.
It's not funny.
Folks, expanded gaming is going to happen because the people of Kentucky demand it. Everybody who teaches in a classroom, protects our communities, serves the neglected, deserves the pension that they were promised. And dedicated revenue will improve the solvency, decrease our costs because our bond ratings will go up. I will get it done. This governor will not.
Moving on to education, another hot topic. Earlier this year, a study by the National Center for Education Statistics ranked Kentucky as the 5th least educated state in America. One factor is the quality of education. Teachers and professors that I've talked with say that they are fighting budget cuts and working with outdated textbooks and technology. What is your plan to give Kentucky a better grade on education, Mr. Bashir?
I believe in public education. I'm a graduate of Kentucky's public schools, and without my teachers, I wouldn't be here. But I also don't think I'd be the person that I am today. I believe in our public education system and our teachers so much, I selected a teacher as my running mate. Jacqueline Coleman will be the first active educator since Martha Lane Collins to serve as lieutenant governor, and I think it's about time. We have committed to always funding education first in each and every one of our budgets. Why? Because Matt Bevin's budgets have been detrimental to public education. Just ask my running mate. Under one of his budgets, she had to lay off 10 adults in her high school, one building alone. She lost every dollar for technology and textbooks that her students so desperately need. Our plan will reduce class size. We'll make sure every child has technology, and we'll provide the $2,000 across-the-board raise all of our teachers have earned. Nobody's given it to them. They have earned it.
Governor Bevin.
Again, it's easy. You can promise all these things, but you have to be able to pay for them. And at the end of the day, you don't have any idea of how to actually create the jobs necessary to pay the taxes, to pay for the things you're promising. As it relates to education specifically, more than 4 years ago, I sat on this campus with then President Mearns, and we talked about the fact that this university was getting a disproportionately low percentage of funding from the state of Kentucky. And at that time, indeed, it was because Northern Kentucky University was seeing such prolific growth in its student population. We were able to remedy that. I did that in my very first budget. The very opening comment you made about them getting less is not true. There's actually more dollars coming here, certainly proportionally, than ever, and more in absolute dollars as well.
You didn't cut the budgets of NKU?
Let him finish, please.
No, and so here's the thing. You talk about your trust of the public school system. You know, I'm the only one of the two of us that's ever trusted his children to the public school teachers
You're
in Kentucky.
attacking my kids again.
It's
5 debates
it's
in a
your
row.
decision. It's your decision.
We deserve better from a governor.
You and your wife have never trusted the public school system with your children, and yet you give a lot of lip service. I have had my children in public school systems. My sister has been a public school sister here in Kentucky.
Okay,
I have
time.
5 members of my family that have been involved in education. I
We
know
have
this
to-
very well.
Quick 30 seconds to respond, both of you.
As being born and raised in Kentucky, there are certain values that I talked about earlier. We treat our neighbors with respect, we keep our promises, and we never go after somebody's
And we
kids.
don't send our kids
It
to
is
public school.
absolutely
Let him finish.
wrong. My wife and I got an amazing opportunity that far too few families get. We got to send our kids to a preschool. Far too many kids show up at kindergarten not kindergarten ready and never catch up. We fell in love with the school they're at, and they are going to finish 5th grade there. My son is finishing 5th grade right now. He's taking the test this weekend, the COGAT,
Thank
and
you.
he is going to be attending public school. But let me go back. A governor who would attack someone else's kids, whether they're running
Okay.
against him or not, does not deserve to be governor, period.
Governor Bevin, 30 seconds, and then we have to move on.
Understood. I will say this. You want every child to have this opportunity, but you don't want every child to be born, number one. Number two, you want every child to have this opportunity. No. Number two,
Okay,
you
please,
want...
please just let him
stop.
respond.
You also strongly oppose tuition tax credits, which would allow the children in our urban communities, including here in Covington,
And defund
not
our
from here.
public schools.
They don't defund our public schools. They come from private citizens who have the choice to give their after-tax dollars to be able to provide a scholarship to a child to have a choice.
You are the
Thank you.
single
This is-
greatest threat
Okay.
to
This
public
is-
education
we
we
This
have
is going
ever
to be a
seen.
every
hard
child to have a
transition. This
chance.
is going to be a hard transition, but I'm going to try.
Let's keep talking about education.
Last question. This is your final debate in what has been a very heated and sometimes, I wouldn't even say sometimes, usually nasty race. We want to end on a positive note tonight. Neither one of you should be defined only by the issues of this race. So I'd like to ask each of you to talk about something you think your opponent has done right or something that you actually admire about him. Please, please. Governor Bevin, I begin with you.
I will say this, you've run for public office. And while you did it the first time with a lot of help, and even this time, I will say this. I applaud you for doing it. And it's not easily done. I don't know why you laugh about that. I truly appreciate
Well, you
the
threw
fact
in a dig
Hold
there.
on.
that you've been willing to step out there, because it's hard. It's hard on a family. It's hard on the people that support you. There is a lot of outside money that is spent. And I would encourage everybody out here in this audience in all measure, whether you're at a young age or an older age at this point, be engaged in the political process, because it is critical. And I applaud you for at least being willing to step up and run for public office. We need men and women that will do it.
Mr. Bashir.
Well, the governor has brought a lot of attention to our foster care system. You know, Brittany, my wife, serves on the board of a place called Maryhurst. It's a place where the most abused of the abused girls in Kentucky end up. By the time they've been there, they've been through multiple homes, and they've been harmed not just before they went into the system, but they have been harmed in the system. And that's our fault. That is our Commonwealth's fault. That is our society's fault, and those kids deserve better. This governor has brought needed attention to it. Now, what we do need to see are better results. You know, there are fewer foster parents today than there were 4 years ago.
That's a
but I
lie.
believe
That's
that
not
the
true.
attention that has been brought to it is important. And I believe that it is going to help us as we move into a new administration get real results, so that no girl ever ends up in Maryhurst, because no girl is ever harmed to that level ever again.
This is,
All right,
I know
no,
it's,
we got
let me,
it.
no, let me say this. It may be written down on your sheet, and someone may have told you that, but that is an absolute lie.
Okay,
There are more
I gotta
than,
shut it down.
Cherie,
We have to
there are
move
more
on.
than 1,000 foster families, more than there were 4 years ago.
Okay.
That's a statement of fact. Look it up. It's
Listen,
the truth.
I'm going to have to take it from your closing statement, so I want to move on here. And I will say at least you both tried to say something nice about one another. That wraps up our questions. We are now going to end tonight with closing statements from each of you. Mr. Bashir, you get to go first. You have 90 seconds.
Well, I want to thank everybody that's here tonight, everyone watching, and everyone that has now survived 5 gubernatorial debates. We've disagreed on a whole lot in these debates, but I do agree with the governor on one thing. We should think about who we want to be the CEO of this state. Would it be someone that bullies his employees like this governor has bullied teachers? Would it be someone that can't get along with his CFO like this governor can't get along with his lieutenant governor? Would it be someone that wouldn't tell you what the company is paying him because this governor won't release his tax returns? Would it be someone that uses company property as his plaything, flying the state plane around anywhere and everywhere he wants to go? Would it be someone that gives his buddies large 6-figure jobs like he did with Charles Grindle at $370,000? Would it be someone who attacks people on a daily basis and thinks just because you disagree that you're an enemy? Folks, we deserve so much better in Kentucky. I believe in a bigger, brighter, better Kentucky. One where we can all come together and admit that public education, pensions, health care, and jobs aren't partisan. They are just good for all of us. One where we have a leader that would never stoop to the type of behavior that we've seen here tonight in other debates. One that will lead from the bully pulpit knowing it's not meant to bully, it's a pulpit to bring about our better nature. I will work every single day to be the best governor I can be for every single one of our families, Democrat, Republican, or Independent. That's my promise.
Governor Bevin.
I'm grateful. I'll tell you what, I'm grateful for your time tonight. I'm grateful to be an American. I'm grateful to be alive in the 21st century in the United States of America. I didn't run for this job because I wanted to be governor. I'm willing to be the governor, and I'm running again because I'm willing to continue to serve. This isn't something I need badly enough to mislead people in order to get it or to keep it. I'm not going to blow smoke. I'm not going to make lies. I'm not going to kick cans down the road. I don't need to read off of a talking points list to make a closing statement. I can sit across the state. I can sit across the table from the CEO of a company and make the case for why Kentucky's greatest days are ahead of them. I'm a kid who grew up well below the poverty level. I've been blessed to live the American dream. I'm an active duty military veteran. I'm a guy who served with men who've given everything, their lives, who came home in a box draped in the American flag, whose children have grown up without what we are blessed with, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of speech, the freedom of all these things, the press and others. These things are worth fighting for, and I will say this. I love Kentucky, and I love America. I love my family. And I will continue to fight. We are setting all-time records, record low unemployment, record levels of jobs, more people working than ever, more of our goods and services being exported than ever before, more people going to work, more revenue coming in, all of these economic things. Look around you in Northern Kentucky. Are you better than you were 4 years ago? And if the answer is yes, I would ask for your vote November the 5th, because I'll tell you this, I truly believe the greatest days are ahead of us.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
That concludes our debate tonight. Of course, I would like to thank our Governor, Matt Bevin, and Attorney General Andy Beshear for being here tonight. And also, we need to thank our great partner tonight, Northern Kentucky University, for all of the hard work that you have done putting this together. And all of you who showed up, who I know are going to be voting 1 week from tonight. Thank you for joining us at home. Have a good night.